In a year filled with some of the absolute best bangers in gaming history, some of which delighted me, others of which failed to meet my own hyper-specific expectations, and even one that threw a massive curveball I was never expecting, I want to take some time to talk about the 3 games that I needed in 2025. Although one of them didn't even come out this year. We'll get to that soon. I've honestly kicked around a similar idea for a video since the channel started, but never quite knew when and how to make it. That other script might still have some potential, but for now, I want to take a crack at the topic with a little more immediacy. It's been some time since I've had a moment to dive into an old-school turn-based RPG, and to a degree, it's not even really what Snowfall Interactive gave us back in April of this year, because Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is everything but old school, and could honestly be better described as the necessary evolution that the genre has been begging for since its decline back in the early aughts. Don't get me wrong, the turn-based RPG has never truly been dead, not in an age with classic throwbacks like Octopath Traveler still going strong, or older series still getting new installments like Dragon Quest XI, or remakes like Live Alive doing better numbers than the game's original release. However, for every sign that there is indeed a thriving fanbase for my old preferred genre of game, the reality of the staggered releases for it is a painful reminder of the changing times. Another way in which market trends seem to continue to work their way outside of my 90s and 2000s sensibilities as a gamer. So, when a game like Expedition 33 comes along and doesn't simply work to keep the genre alive, but instead pulls inspiration from the history of turn-based games to make something that adds to the genre as a whole through the iterations on everything from Persona 5-style battle menus to the Paper Mario or Legend of Dragoon-styled reactive combat inputs, there's even a bit of Souls thrown in there for good measure, with the comprehensive parry and counter system. Although, more than the evolution of my old favorite genre, Expedition 33 also reminded me of something that fades from view at times, especially when so much of my time lately has been centered on ritualistically cataloging every way that the games of From Software can be stripped for content. But from go, the journey of Expedition 33 is an exhibition of that old adage of games as art. Of course, games have always been art, from the early drivers in the medium like Akalabeth and Wizardry, to the titles that most fundamentally formed my appreciation for gaming like Lunar and Dark Cloud. For me though, as my understanding of the medium grew from childhood adoration to a more mature appreciation, the first time I recognized a game as art had to have been in my first interactions with the title Journey, from That Game Studio. Not only because of the beauty of the game, visually and musically, but also the way that the interactivity and online aspects worked to match players together. In fact, my first ever experience with that game is one that I wish happened during a time when I started meticulously recording every game I played. I matched with a new player with a completely filled cape, and they guided me through the later half of the adventure, until we reached the ending, and through our shared interaction had a uniquely human experience, one that few games even manage to emulate now, as we shared in the pain of that final climb up the cold mountain and danced together for almost 20 minutes at the apex of the journey before finally continuing on. This feeling, this idea that I was experiencing something that only a game can give with another person, well, it followed me throughout the journey of Expedition 33. Through the narrative highs, yes, but also in the moments that could only come from a game like this. That learning experience of facing off against an enemy that I'm completely overwhelmed by at the start, before eventually coming out victorious through nothing more than patience and practice. Oh, and the developer's ability to teach me how to play the game properly. These experiences that don't exist in any other entertainment medium. All of the specifics of this type of art is also to say nothing about how well the game hits on every traditional style of art as well. The world of Expedition 33, loosely based on the area surrounding Paris, France, is a beautifully painted landscape, with iconic locations like the Eiffel Tower twisted by the brushstroke of the paintress during the fracture that incited the events of the game over 67 years ago. Then, as we expand out of Lumiere, we see brightly colored coral reefs, dark city streets that call perfectly on the Clair Obscur title of the game. I could sit and describe the vivid colors and expressive palettes all day, and in fact, for any friend willing to listen, I already have in the past few months since Expedition 33 released. Then there's the music. My own music background is fairly important to me, but never in such a way that I've ever defined myself as a musician. That being said, some high school and college experience in choir has given me a bit of an appreciation for the creation of music as an art form. Not that there is anyone alive who doesn't like music, it's one of those things that speaks to us all on a fundamental, foundational level that goes beyond literal comprehension. But the soundtrack of Expedition 33 is an incredible experience, crossing over so many different genres from the jazzy tunes that accompany the toy-like gesturals to the orchestral bombast of Une vie Athénienne, pardon my terrible French. All the way to my very favorite song in the whole game, Our Painted Family. A dirge molded out of stripping the happy chords that might fill the home of a loving family, now haunting them with the shadow of what was once there. This may be the best soundtrack I have ever heard from a game in my life. And this is coming from someone who regularly listens to and has tons of music from video games slotted into my background playlist for writing. To Xanarkin from Final Fantasy X is playing right now as I type this out, with On the Shore of Another World from Chrono Cross queued up right behind it. These are some of my favorite songs ever, all from video games. But damn, if Expedition 33 still doesn't blow even my past favorites right out of the water. Honestly, Lorien Testard should be extremely proud of what should be the starting breakout composition for a long career of creating impossibly stellar soundtracks. And all of this, the painted world, the beautiful music, it's all dressing to the artwork that most specifically calls to me. The characters, the narrative, or as I often describe in my retro respecs. I've come to understand the story of Expedition 33 as a narrative for no one. Which is not to say that no one could like it, I love it in fact, or that its characters are flat and boring, quite the opposite. No, what I mean is that this is a story that isn't there for catharsis. It isn't meant to leave you feeling warm and loved at the end. It's meant to make you feel. Sometimes that is joy, eliciting many a happy comedic chortle from me. Other times though, and more often than not, the feeling it elicits is... Allow me a moment to speak a little more specifically, starting with the opening segment of the game, which acts as a great introduction and microcosm of what we're expecting moving forward. The story of Expedition 33 opens with a lingering shot on Gustav, as he watches out towards the paintress in the distance, sitting under her monolith, the number 34 emblazoned over it. Right from the start, we get that beautiful music, this time playing Lumière, a song that shares its name with the small town Gustav stands over. Then, the opening lines of dialogue give us everything we need to know about the world, the characters on this roof, and the vibes moving forward.
If you're gonna give someone flowers, you should probably do it before they wither and die.
What, the flower? Or Sophie?
Ooh, dark. Sophie would approve.
Right away, we know three things. Gustav and Maëlle are incredibly close, their conversation holding a familial cadence to it, like they're siblings. Gustav has a love interest named Sophie, and she is not long for this world. And finally, Gustav is putting off a meeting with Sophie, likely because it's too difficult to face the withering that Maëlle had mentioned. Then we get the entire theme of the rest of the story wrapped up in another back and forth.
Have you tried throwing with your other arm instead? If you could hit the paintress directly, that would actually be useful.
You know, Hobbies don't always have to be useful. I'm enjoying the uselessness of today and readying my usefulness for tomorrow.
In fact, this line might be the reason for this entire video's existence. It's a great encapsulation of Gustav's entire ideology. Not necessarily that he's lazy or that he intends to put things off, but that life isn't about pure productivity or an endless train of work. Sometimes there needs to be time to sit back and throw rocks. Hobbies don't have to be useful. Further along, we finally meet Sophie, and it's an adorable moment, with the weight of her history with Gustav hanging over that demise, which had been so casually acknowledged before. Then we watch as they enjoy a somewhat dour festival happening along the main street of Lumiere. It gives us time to bond with Sophie, understand the relationship between her and Gustav that had been broken a long time ago, while the connection had never fully been severed. This short walk gives them time to grow together again, and gives us that time to see exactly what these two mean to each other. Then, yeah, this vibe in the narrative never changes throughout the story. Every little event continues to do this, to offer little human moments of joy, of focus, of love, of intelligence, of success. And then once you've felt like things have clicked into your favor, the game takes everything you ever thought you loved away. Over and over and over again. It's a powerful story and one of the best in this medium, but it's not one that will leave you happy or complete. Instead, it leaves you feeling, well, yeah, exactly that. It leaves you feeling like a nerve exposed to the open air. And that's exactly what I feel every time I return to engage with the story. It's not a story I would have seeked out if I knew how it would end, but it's certainly something I needed when I first came across it, and appreciate it today. Next up, I think this next game needs a bit of a preamble before we actually talk about the effect it had on me, and how I needed it to come into my 2025. So, Wanderstop on the surface is a cute, cozy title about running a tea shop, not only by brewing the tea, but also by taking care of the garden where you get our tea leaves, and additives like fruits and books, and even a potted plant if you want to. However, this game is by Ivy Road, a studio founded by Davey Reedon and Carla Zimonja. Y'all might recognize Reedon as the indie developer behind games like The Stanley Parable and The Beginner's Guide. And hopefully everyone also recognized Zimonja as one of the founding members of Fulbright, the indie studio behind Gone Home, the BioShock 2 DLC Minerva's Den, and Tacoma. So, two things should be immediately clear given the names on display here. 1, we can expect a narrative-heavy experience, and B, we should be prepared for something about this game to subvert our expectations somewhere, either in the gameplay department or in the narrative focus. Well, that subversion comes pretty quick, and actually disguises itself in various layers. This starts with the introduction of Alta as a fighter in some kind of coliseum or combat league. It isn't entirely clear, nor is it important. What is important is the fact that we will never be fighting in this game, or using the sword that is set off to the side for the entire experience. Given the design of the character, the incredible look of the weapon, and even the stellar animations in this cartoony art style, it certainly makes the inner sword goblin in me want to cut, stab, and punch a bunch of colorful enemies throughout the dark forest that surrounds the clearing where the tea shop is. But that isn't the point of this game. And honestly, I knew that coming in, but for anyone more versed in other cozy titles like Stardew Valley, My Time at Portia, or Rune Factory, it isn't too odd for the cozy farming life sim to also include some light combat that acts as a supplemental mechanic to add some much needed heterogeneity to the experience. Still, that's not what Wanderstop is going for. It's a much simpler game about serving tea. And even then, it's barely about that. Yeah, to the surprise of no one, even the basic idea of running a tea shop is filtered through a lens of subverting expectations, while also keeping true to its message. There are no disgruntled customers to attend to, no time limit or balancing of materials and currency. Everyone from the wannabe knight with a cursed leg, to the buff fanboy who's on the same path as Alta, to the extra-dimensional being that has crossed infinite realities, are all willing to wait minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years, decades, centuries, millennia, eons, epochs, an infinite stretch of time unbound by the power of the human perception of its passing across clock or calendar. Because once again, that isn't what the game is about. So then, if I've covered all of the things that Wanderstop isn't, then what is it? Wanderstop is a game about life, about the drive to succeed, about the sting of failure, but more than anything, this is a game about the value of stopping in the clearing within the dark forest, brewing a tasty cup of tea, and taking the time to enjoy its warmth while surrounded by nature. Because at the end of the day, that's what the game is about. It's about taking breaks. Very specifically, it's also about recovering from burnout. It's not difficult to see right from the start that this is what Alta is suffering from at the start of the game. Having been stressed beyond her breaking point as she spent 3 years as the undefeated champion of the arena, the strongest and most skilled fighter in the world. Others also see it on her immediately, but from someone on the outside of her predicament looking in, it can be hard to reach her with the truth of what is really causing her trouble. And so, as we go through the game, interacting with customers, growing our plants, and brewing tea, we're encouraged to take our time and use this time to relax. We're encouraged to decorate the tea shop, even if those decorations won't be permanent. We're encouraged to sit with a new flavor of tea, and a book, even if the books are cringe and the tea only stirs up dour memories.
Does this taste like leather? I guess I don't know what leather tastes like. You know, leatherworking was the one single thing my dad was good at. He'd always make people gifts on their birthday. Things like shoes or a handbag or whatever. But it was always a hobby for him. He refused to do it professionally, to take it seriously. And that killed me. Because, come on, this is something you're good at, or you could be good at, really good. So it was such a waste in my mind. I told him that. Told him it was a waste. And I remember, God, the look he gave me when I said that, of like it said the most demeaning thing to him. I'd never seen him get mad like that before. I wish he'd been like that more often. Mad.
We're encouraged to spend this time however we see fit. Whether that is to rush through the customer orders and proceed through the story, or go clean up the clearing. The point is that the decision is up to us, and the time is ours to waste. Every aspect of the game is designed with this in mind, from the narrative that encourages calm over closure, to the process of waiting for tea leaves to dry that feels like a gameplay mechanic for the purpose of balance and resource management, but is really an excuse to drag out the time and force the break even longer. I mean, the game's achievements don't even track progress through chapters or creating different types of tea. It's not based on whether or not you drank this concoction or that concoction. They're all delivered based off of the amount of time you've been spending on this break in the clearing, with not even a single meticulous task being truly given to you that you must succeed in throughout your extended break here. It's a pretty simple concept, to be honest, a game about taking breaks, which, let's also be honest, that's what most of us play games to do in the first place. Right? Right? Well, for me, the hobby hasn't exactly been that for the last 2 years. I know, I've been playing games as a job for the last 2 years. Woe is me. But I mean that as an issue in a different way. In fact, it's actually been my job for more than 6 years, as I wrote professionally about games before even starting this channel. So for half of the last decade, every time I've booted up a game, it's been with the express purpose to make content out of it, whether it be articles for when I was a games journalist or videos today. I've been hit with burnout a few times before. I'm a consistent candle at both ends guy. It wasn't uncommon in college for me to sign up for 12 hours of classes per day and then work part-time on the side. Since graduating, I've moved from one job to the next and rarely spent the time between those jobs simply sitting around and doing nothing. Between pursuing further education, working on my novels, and additional freelance work, I've really never taken what one might call a true break from always striving for productivity over the last decade. Even if all of this attempt to be productive has rarely turned into any type of financial success. And now I've landed on trying to turn this channel into something. I don't know exactly yet. A full-time job, a demo reel for my writing and editing. Whatever it is, it's the next step in my endless quest to remain productive. And it's taken everything I can to try to keep it running. To the point that I often find it difficult to engage with anything I enjoy that isn't going to be a part of some future project. The next video, the next assignment, the next thing I can put on my resume. Reading a book? Yeah, fuck that. Lightbringer and Harrow the Ninth are never going to be in a video, so why even put the time into enjoying that? Want to play a new game? Well, wouldn't a better use of my time be to pop into Dark Souls again? At least I can get some content out of that. Okay, 2 hours with a new movie. Let the entertainment wash over me, no need to be engaged, and it has a set time limit. Yeah, sure, let me grab my laptop first though. I can work on the next script while I watch, or at least I can listen to the movie. That's basically the same, right? Honestly, why not go put a podcast on that talks about the movie in my headset so it won't distract me from the first screen as much? Plus, it's free, better time and budget. So yeah, when I found Wanderstop on the PlayStation Store and saw the cozy tea shop to take a short breather in, I decided to give it a chance. But when the game went from cozy distraction to a message about burnout, its effects, how to tackle it, and naturally what's left after a candle burns that bright, twice as hot for both ends, which is to say a pile of ash, I found myself reflected a bit in the story of Alta, who, can I take another second to note how sick her design is and how awesome the sword is? Oh, it is such a sick type of blood red magic cutlass with runes all over it. Damn, I would absolutely play the hell out of an actual combat-heavy game with Alta as the lead using this weapon. Sorry, back to the point at hand. The narrative of Wanderstop really got me to introspect a bit and take the time to sit back and enjoy the cozy nature of the game. Again, there were no time limits, no resources to manage, simply a garden to tend to and plants to decorate the tea shop with. It was nice. Until, of course, it inspired me to make this video, so I guess even that didn't really stick. The last game I want to talk about didn't even come out this year, or last year, or the year before that. It came out more than 2 decades ago, and it isn't even a single game. .hack IMOQ, given the name from the first letter of each game in the 4-volume series, Infection, Mutation, Outbreak, and Quarantine. I've already spoken at length about these 4 games, so if you'd like to know my full thoughts on the series, you can go check out the retro respect I did on that. However, it made it into this video, not because I need to scream its greatness from the rooftops, but because it was fantastic to take another peek down memory lane with this series, and the multimedia release surrounding the game. I've certainly mentioned this before in older videos, but I'm an old man. a certified 90s kid, and like every other 90s kid, I remember very fondly everything from the early to mid-2000s and love to pretend that it comes from the 90s. This includes the games I used to play at the time, or the ones I would see on the shelves at EB Games or Blockbuster. I meant it, guys. Old as fuck over here. This is one of the reasons that I enjoy making the retro respecs so much. Regardless of how much they are surely killing my channel, now that I think about it, this video is probably tanking my viewership too. Am I sure I'm really trying to succeed at this whole YouTube thing, or am I making up crap so I can hear myself talking to a mic? Questions for later. For now, this was my favorite retro respect of the year, even if it's also the shortest. But the fact that I never finished the IMOQ series as a kid made the whole experience of playing through the games and researching the history and development of them such a wonderful learning experience. And most of all, it gave me something that no new game will ever be able to give. As it turns out, no game released in 2025 will be able to give me closure for 20 years of pining. Because that's kind of how time works. I can't have decades of history with something that only came out this year, unless it's something like Kingdom Hearts 4 that's been in development for the last 25 years. But most games these days only come to me long after the development cycle is past, their teams having shoved their noses to the grindstone over the 6 years it took to make the game behind doors closed to me, and now I get to go have a great time and appreciate their effort right now. However, very few games have I carried with me for long enough to be nostalgic for the feeling of simply seeing it on the shelves of, again, Blockbuster. Their very existence being that of a ghost, long forgotten by games media as a whole of today, and left as an unchecked box for so long for me, that it's gathered enough dust to be completely forgotten until I start digging around in the dark crevices in the back of my mind. This is how the .hack IMOQ series has been for me until this very year. An unchecked box that nagged at me every few years, taunting me with how incredibly expensive the final game in the series had become, the only one I was missing from the 4-volume set. So taking the time this year to finally check that box was a weight off of my mind that had hung with me for 2 decades. And honestly, that can sometimes be a better reason to check out retro titles than for reliving nostalgia. Most often, folks gravitate towards older, must-play titles that have become the foundation for modern gaming today, like Final Fantasy X, or Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, or Devil May Cry. But other times, there are gems with much smaller fan bases that deserve to be re-examined in the modern lens of gaming. I mean, to a degree, games like .hack IMOQ set the stage for what we now know as the live service model, that builds and grows a game over time that you had to be there for as it was building. Like the constantly evolving stories of MMOs like Destiny or Final Fantasy XIV, that takes your base character through new narratives with each new season and expansion. This all leads to the actual reason I even started to work on this video, because I wanted to think about. Now, I'm not exactly interested in the psychology of gamers in this video or the dichotomy of intrinsic versus extrinsic play. While I'm certainly curious about the trends of the people who engage in this hobby, our collective feelings towards genres like the turn-based RPG and first-person shooters, our modalities like strategy or exploration, I'm not looking to dive into that today. Instead, all I'm looking to do is share my experience this year and consider why these games have stuck out to me so much in the last couple months. Like most forms of entertainment, reading books, watching movies and TV, hell, even scrolling through art online, there are a few things that draw me to them. There's the escapism of it, the distraction from my daily life, and the daily workload. But at the end of the day, games are a lot of things. They're art, they're a distraction, they're the most interactive medium available, but more than anything, games are fun. They make me feel. Yeah, all 3 of those games do exactly that. They make me feel. And is there anything that reminds you you're alive better than when you simply feel? Hey, it's that time again. The end of the video where I invite folks to come check out the Patreon, link in the description, and make good on the rewards for those currently pledged. Patreon members get early access to new content and their names written in the credits at the end of videos. And those who pledge in the top tiers get their names read out. Like our DevBox designers, Genghis Braun, and our DevBox developers, Azul. Thanks for your support, and thanks for watching.